Hi, this is Jeanine Prezioso from Reuters, and I have Benjamin Lawsky here from the New York State Department of Financial Services. Benjamin, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
We wanted to start off a little bit with Dodd Frank. You're the first state regulator to implement the federal law on the state level. And we're wondering, why did you go after that in particular? What did your agency find that you thought really needed or had enough teeth in the regulation to be able to go after a company with that law?
Sure. So we've had for a while now an investigation, a matter involving a subprime auto lender out of Long Island named Condor. And when we looked at it for a while, we realized there was some, if you believe our allegations, some real problems there in terms of funds being taken away from customers, and to the tune of millions and millions of dollars. As we looked at it, the Dodd Frank statute offered us the ability to get into federal court, and this company is also operating in 25 different states or 26 different states, so it allowed us to get potentially broader relief. It also allowed us to get damages, disgorgement, and other penalties under Dodd Frank that we couldn't get under state banking law. So we decided that this was a good time to bring an action under that somewhat new provision, and it turns out it's the first time in the country that a bank regulator has done that.
In the case of Condor, was that a one-shot type thing, or do you think Dodd Frank is sort of taking off a little bit, trending a little bit more, becoming a little bit more potent among state regulators, federal regulators?
We'll see. I think the jury's out on that. I think it's possible that now that DFS has used this, new route to get some relief, you may see other regulators decide to do something similar. But I think we just brought Condor last week, and it remains to be seen. I think, look, the UDAP provisions, unfair, deceptive, and abusive practices, UDAP,
right,
within Dodd Frank, the consumer protection provisions, are meant to be enforced by the CFPB, but also by, where appropriate, state bank regulators and state attorneys general in certain instances. And I think there's no reason in appropriate cases why state regulators shouldn't be doing that.
Let's jump to Bitcoin for a second, because
Sure.
that's another thing I think people are wondering about, or virtual currencies. Your agency is sort of actively taking a role in getting the regulations set for this, and I think you said you wanted to make New York the first state to have regulations for virtual currency. Do you feel that that's somehow opening a Pandora's box for hackers and computer programmers who have other ideas?
Right. I think we have that problem now. Bitcoin exists. People are doing Bitcoin transactions today.
Mm-hmm.
And money laundering is a problem in that area. I think it's getting better, and I think with careful regulation that doesn't squelch the development of this very powerful new technology, but enough regulation to ensure that we're preventing money laundering and putting in enough consumer protections and ensuring that the institutions that are taking fiat currency to convert it into Bitcoin don't collapse upon themselves like we saw with Mt. Gox. If we can do those three things in a careful regulation that doesn't stifle innovation, I think we could help move virtual currencies in the right direction.
Okay, so do you see Bitcoin or a virtual currency like it as a viable currency going forward?
I think, I'm not the expert on the virtual currency world. I think that it is, the more we study it, the more we see a very powerful technology that underlies virtual currencies in general and could have a whole ream of benefits to the system going forward. And I think it's an open question how the platforms that are being built upon platforms and how the innovations are happening, where everything goes. And I think it's pretty fair to say that 5 to 10 years from now, the Bitcoin we know today will not look like the thing we know in the future. But I think the underlying technology will develop, and as it develops, it could end up being a really powerful alternative money transmission system that some people use in certain circumstances. But I think we're only going to really get there if we have careful regulation that is also ensuring that the virtual currency world gets used in the right ways and doesn't end up being a place where money laundering, for example, can proliferate.
Okay, one more question, and I'll ask you then, in what circumstances would you see someone using a virtual currency that would benefit them?
Sure. So there are a couple of different areas. One is, for example, we have thousands and thousands of New Yorkers every week who, at the end of the week, takes a good portion of their hard-earned earnings from the week and send it back to a country where their family is, another country. And right now they're doing that typically through MoneyGram or Western Union and wire services, and they're doing it and they're paying 8 to 9% in fees.
Okay.
That's a very hefty charge. If these systems become more efficient, potentially you could do those kinds of transmissions in a much more efficient way, and the charges would go down to 1%, for example. Another benefit, you could largely do away with a lot of identity theft, because the virtual currency systems operate without a third-party intermediary that stores all your personal data. Third benefit, you could be sending money to countries where today you can't send it at all. I was shocked to learn how many countries don't have a modern banking system and you simply can't send money to unless you're going to put cash in an envelope, which I think a lot of people are loath to do. This is a peer-to-peer system. People have iPhones, as they do in many, many places. You'll be able to potentially send virtual currency to those other countries. You can also program the currency, programmable currency, and you can put certain things in escrow, for example, or pull it out of escrow, depending on how the virtual currency is programmed based on the deal you've worked out. There are a lot of really interesting efficiencies, and I think probably the biggest promise of virtual currencies are all the things you and I can't even think of right now.
Right.
And we've had some experts testify at our hearings that that is exactly one of the real promises of virtual currencies. It's changing, it's modern, it's new, it offers so many potential changes in the future and efficiencies that we should at least see if they come to fruition. And we should design regulation that protects from money laundering, protects consumers, makes these institutions safe and sound, but at the same time doesn't just squelch innovation. It's the opposite of what we should be doing.
Right.
Maybe it survives, I'm not the expert on that, but I think we want to approach regulation in that spirit.
Well, thank you so much for your time, and thank you for being here with us.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
I'm Jeanine Prezioso, and this is Reuters.